Celebrating the hard work and determination of our area athletes. This is The Score on WQAD News 8.
Good evening and welcome to The Score Sunday. The high school football season is officially over and it's on to the winter sports. But tonight we'll focus more on the college sports, in particular Iowa and Illinois. Coming up on tonight's show, we will recap the Illinois-Iowa game with Kedrick Prince and Tom Kakert. Then we'll shift our focus to hoops as Iowa and Illinois are off to great starts this season and they'll meet in a couple of weeks. Our FCA Story of the Week will feature a women's college basketball coach that has a big influence on her players. Then we'll hear from a few Western Big Six boys basketball coaches as they begin their season next week. We start tonight with a recap of the Illinois-Iowa football game, and who better than to do that than a couple of experts. We are now joined by two guys that need no introduction, but in case you don't know who they are, I will introduce them for you. We have Tom Kakert from the HawkeyeReport.com, and we have Ked Prince from Director of Recruiting for Illini Guys. Is that correct? That's a new title for you, is that right?
Yeah, always trying to do something different, man.
But still with the Illini, which is a great thing. We love having both sides of the river covered by you guys and being able to talk about all things Iowa and Illinois, which is a great thing for all of our viewers. So obviously the big thing is yesterday was the Illinois-Iowa football game. Iowa coming out on top in that game, 33-23. And Ken, I'll start with you since Illinois was the visiting team. What did you think of the game? Obviously, Illinois jumps out to a lead, Iowa comes back, and in the end, Illinois falls. But in this, I guess, what did you think about the game?
Well, I was not surprised that it was a competitive game. You know, I've done I did a lot of podcasts this week, and you know, Tom and I did one together, and you know, I wrote a lot of columns about it. And I told people this is not the same Illinois team that they're used to. Brett Bielema is a really, really good college football coach, and he's a proven college football coach because we all know in Big Ten country he was extremely successful at Wisconsin. I guess if there's anything that surprised me was the fact that Illinois threw for 248 yards. It seems like it's been over a year since I've seen that happen because they knew going into it, it's tough to run against Iowa. I was impressed with that, I guess, and not disappointed with the loss. I mean, I'm disappointed with a couple of things that happened, but if anybody who knows anything about sports, you can see where Illinois was a couple of years ago, getting beat 63-0 and not competitive. This is different, and you can see it building. The assistant coach, Jordan Donald, talked about that. They're about 2 years away from competing with Iowa and Wisconsin and Minnesota for the Big Ten West, I think.
For you, Tom, what did you think of the win for Iowa?
Yeah, it's kind of a classic Iowa win in a lot of ways. So the Ferentz era, it's complementary football. So you get the jolt from Charlie Jones with the 100-yard touchdown kickoff return. Illinois was up 10-0 and frankly was in control of the game, and that kind of jolted things. I think that was a game-changing play. Then you have an offensive touchdown, and you have the late Jack Campbell pick six. So you got all three phases working together to get you 21 points. Caleb Shudak has, a day to remember with 4 field goals. And it's just all of those things kind of working together. A couple of big turnovers, the Campbell one, Dane Belton with an interception. I just thought, and the run game got going. That was, as Ked was surprised by Illinois throwing the ball as well as they did. Iowa's run game's been struggling, and Tyler Goodson had a solid game. I thought Gavin Williams gave him a little bit of a boost too in the run game, and Padilla being mobile, I think, helped them as well.
So obviously Iowa's on a track to still win the Big Ten West title. They need a win against Nebraska and get some help from Minnesota, who plays Wisconsin this week. Tom, does that matter? Do they need to win the West to say this was a successful season?
Not really. It would be nice. It's kind of one of those things you can put on the resume, but if they win this week, that's a 10-win season. And those don't come along very often in Iowa football history. It seems like they do under Ferentz, but they really don't. And that's a solid year. And frankly, I'll be real honest, if you watched Ohio State, Does anybody want to go get in front of that train in
Right.
Indianapolis and get 70 points hung on you? I mean, that's a good Michigan State team that gave up 49 in the first half. I don't know if, and that'll be indoors. Weather won't be a factor. I mean, that's a bus I'm not getting in front of.
Ked, Illinois, with a win, can get to 5. Obviously, that'll be one short of postseason or a bowl game. But does that matter for Illinois fans? I mean, this seems to me like this was a successful season. Illinois goes on the road twice, beats 2 top 25 teams at their place. It seems like they found the right guy now with Brett Bielema.
Well, I know you're probably going to laugh, and all the listeners listening to this, but there's a possible chance they could go to a bowl game still. I'm not for sure if the Big Ten is going to fulfill all their bowl games. And if it was me, I take it because you get the extra practice. It's good for recruiting. So there's a slim chance. I'm not saying it's a great chance, but it's been talked about. It's been extremely surprising. I'm not going to, pretend that I like what they're doing because it's kind of bland. Like Iowa and Wisconsin to me and Illinois, it's kind of boring. However, they win and they're successful doing it. And he's going to continue to do it because I like the dual threat quarterback guys that can run and throw, but that's just not what Brett Bielema is going to do. And Wisconsin, Iowa's not going to do the same thing. But to answer your question, I think they're definitely heading in the right direction. If they had a quarterback that was consistent, that could throw for 200 yards all season, Illinois would have 6, 7, 8 wins easily. They've lost games. And when you go to Purdue and you score 9 points, those are games that they could have won. So looking toward the future and the recruiting, one of the things that I do, for a living is recruiting, and they're finally beating out Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota for football recruits. That didn't happen before.
Ked, I'm going to wrap up one question for each of you, but for you, Ked, what do you want to see Illinois change or need to change going into year 2 under Brett Bielema to be even more successful next year?
Great question. Not so predictable on offense. The offense is very, very predictable. It's run the ball up the middle, run up the middle. There's no imagination. I think in the offseason, I really want to see them, if they're going to keep the same offensive coordinator, they can't be predictable because everybody in the stands, if we knew that, and in the press box, you knew the opposing defenses knew it.
And for you, Tom, obviously the biggest concern this year has been Iowa's offense. Does there need to be a change there? I know Brian Ferentz is Kurt's son, but does there need to be a change there, or is that an area of concern?
There won't be any change. The thing that I always come back to is we're 23 years into the Ferentz tenure. The offense has pretty much been the same for 23 years. As I always say with Brian, it's allowed to kind of color outside the outline a little bit more than Greg Davis or Ken O'Keefe were. So from that perspective, there's a little more leeway for him. So I just don't see any change to it. I was going to be a run first, run the stretch play. They're just going to do those things. That's their identity. That's their DNA. That's been the way it is for 23 years, and it's not going to change as long as Kirk Ferentz is in charge of the program.
And he will be there for the foreseeable future, which is not a bad thing for Iowa fans, obviously, and kind of good for the Big Ten as well. All right, guys, that's it for football, but I'm not done with you. We're going to switch gears. We're going to shift to basketball. So coming up, we will talk some Iowa, Illinois hoops. They have a big game coming up in just a few weeks. That's coming up next on The Score Sunday.
The Score continues on WQAD News 8.
We are still joined by Tom Caker from the Hawkeye Report and Kedrick Prince from Director of Illinois Fighting Illini guys. And we talk football. Now we're going to talk a little basketball. Season's underway. Ked, I started with you first in the last segment, so I'll start with Tom. The Hawkeyes are 4-0, off to a nice start. A lot of people questioning where this team's going to be this year. Now, I know they haven't played anybody too tough yet. So what do you like about this Iowa team so far this year?
You're right. They haven't. They played easy teams. Let's just be honest. They got pushed a little bit by North Carolina Central the other night, but they have not been, things will ramp up after Thanksgiving when they go to Virginia, and they've got the 2 conference games in Iowa State and also a game against Utah State. So they'll get there. But what I've liked so far, Keegan Murray's playing really, really well. He's a terrific young player, scoring the basketball really well, rebounding. Had 27 and 21. I don't care who you're against. If you put up those numbers, that's some really good stats. And I like the way that they shot the ball the other night. It's been interesting because that was the big question mark going into this season, was how well could this team shoot the ball? And they, set school record with 23 pointers. But there's been other games where they haven't shot it as well. So I think it's still an open question about that. When they go up against teams with size, I think there's some question there when they face a Kofi Coburn or a Zach Edey or a Hunter Dickinson. How are they going to defend those guys in the post? I think that's a huge question mark.
Illinois is off the 2-1 start. Obviously, a tough loss to Marquette the other day on the last second bucket. What concerns you, or what do you like about this Illinois team so far?
I only have one concern. It's the lack of three-point shooting, which is supposed to be a strength. I'm not really upset about the Marquette loss because here's the deal. The best player in college basketball wasn't playing. You lose by 2 points on the road. You have a Kofi Coburn who's going to give you 20 and 10 every night. He wasn't there. Obviously, Corbello had a lot of late turnovers down the stretch, and I know that's part of basketball. Seth Greenberg from Chicago Sun-Times wrote a column when Darian Williams was a sophomore. He went to Providence and had 10 turnovers and did the same thing. So it's a learning experience from him. I like the team. They're deep. I like what they run, and I think just from Coleman Hawkins, this guy's going to surprise me. A lot of people talk about Keegan Murray from Iowa. I've seen Coleman Hawkins' name and Keegan Murray as surprise players in the Big Ten. Both of those guys are almost averaging. I know Keegan's averaging double because they don't play anybody, but it's the same situation. I really think that they're ranked 10th in the country. Probably when the post come out tomorrow, they'll drop. But I think once Kofi gets back in the mix of things, it's going to change the whole look of the whole program again. He's the most dominant big man in college basketball.
They play on December 6th this year, and they get to play twice. Tom, I'll start with you. Good thing for college basketball. I know it's not the matchup that everybody wanted last year where they hoped they could play twice because the teams were so good, but the rivalry seems to be back between the two schools. Is it nice to have them play twice?
Yeah, I love it. It's great when the rivalry is good and active and fun, and DeMonte Williams and Connor McCaffrey are jawing with each other on the court. That's there was some stuff with the football game yesterday where there's a little extracurricular activity. There's a rivalry there with Brett Bielema being a former Hawkeye and having that Tiger Hawk tattoo on his calf that he's walking around the Illinois facility with that. So there's always a good rivalry, and I'm glad that they're playing twice. Maybe they'll get to play 3 times. Maybe we'll get another one in the Big Ten tournament this year too.
How about for you, Kev? What are your thoughts on them playing twice?
I like how Tom said that in there about the Tiger Hawk and Coach Bielema. But I will say this: there was a little drawing in yesterday. I don't think it was because of Coach Bielema. Coach Bielema has a lot of respect for Iowa, but it is a good rivalry because I think the rivalry, what you saw in football yesterday, was because 2 years ago when Illinois was in Iowa City, Brandon Peters got knocked out of the game. So I think that was kind of, had to do with a lot of it. But it is healthy. As long as people are keeping in perspective, they live in the Quad Cities, it's a great rivalry. Iowa has Iowa State. Now Illinois has Michigan along with Iowa. So I think it's good. I like it. I don't think Iowa's as good as they were last year. But still, it's going to be a lot of fun covering the game and just being up there.
All right, before we wrap this one up, one last question for each of you. Ken, I'll start with you. A guy that's going to make the biggest impact on Illinois' basketball team this year. Obviously, Kofi would be that guy. Give me somebody else. Give me somebody who people won't think of that's going to make the biggest impact this year.
Well, obviously you got 2 preseason All-Americans in Kofi Coburn and Andre Corbello, but I'm going to go with Coleman Hawkins. This guy is 6'10", and people laughed at me a couple weeks ago when I made reference to him being, Magic Johnson. The kid's not Magic Johnson, but the kid is 6'10". He was playing point guard, and it's just amazing. Illinois, I don't know the last time they've had a four-man that size that can shoot it and defend and rebound, and he's a tough matchup for a lot of people. So I really like what he brings to the table.
he has a lot of energy when he's on the court as well, which is something that's fun to watch. Tom, same thing. Who's that guy that's going to step up? Obviously, Keegan Murray's getting all the press, but they got to have somebody else. Jordan Bohannon's back for a 6th year. They got some other guy. Who's that guy that's going to complement Keegan and make an impact?
I'm not going to mention Jordan. I'm not going to mention Patrick McCaffrey or Keegan, but I am going to go to Chris Murray, Keegan's twin brother, who's coming off the bench, and he's really developing offensively, can shoot the ball from the outside, active on the glass. He's a really good player, and coming off the bench, they need that guy that can give him some spark. He's got some size. So watch for Chris Murray this year.
They play December 6th in Iowa City. Real quickly, who wins and by how much, Tom?
I think Illinois is going to win. They've got Iowa doesn't have anybody nobody has anybody who can handle Kofi. I mean, other than maybe Purdue with Edie's as big as Kofi, but even he's going to have problems. So I think Illinois and Corbello gave him trouble last year. He's going to give him trouble again this year, I think. So I think Illinois is probably going to win by about 10.
Ken, how about you?
Well, first, I can't believe I heard him say that. I'm extremely, I'm impressed and I'm surprised. I don't think it's going to be a game either. I just think there's no way you match up with Kofi. Tom mentioned he's right. A lot of people don't have that, size to do that. And I think by that time, Illinois is going to be rolling. They will have faced a lot of competition. So I see Illinois winning that game by 10 to 15.
Guys, thanks so much for chatting on a Sunday. Have a great Thanksgiving and enjoy the basketball and the rest of the football season.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yep.
It's halftime. Up next, influence of a coach. How a women's college basketball coach with ties to the area is making an impact with their players. It's next in our FCA Story of the Week on The Score Sunday. The influence of a coach. It can last a lifetime. It's certainly enduring as Andrea Gorski pours into the Bradley Braves women's basketball team. As Dan Pearson reports in our FCA Story of the Week, a coach very familiar to Muscatine Muskies fans is along for the ride.
At this point, the love of the game is a given for players and coaches in a Division I basketball program. The beauty of it all, the role of relationship. Together, rallying around that love of the game. It's evident for Andrea Gorski, 6th-year head coach, former Bradley Brave.
I'm not going to be more passionate about trying to get wins for Bradley. And I was proud when I played here at Bradley. I was always proud to put the uniform on for what Bradley represents. I think we do things the right way all the time. And, and as a coach, I want our players to understand that and have that same experience.
Former Muscatine Muskie Letty Lerma is also Bradley built. Former player, now on the staff after a couple of seasons playing professionally.
She's so brilliant on the basketball court, but I think, one thing I'm going to take from her is just truly is probably her toughness and her selflessness, because she comes to work every day and, she's never having a bad day, and if she is, we don't know it.
A Bradley Hall of Famer as a player, Andrea Gorski is certainly trending that way as a coach as well. Amazing success in her first 5 years, and just like she was when she was a player, she is driven to excellence and improvement.
We talk about gratitude, ownership, accountability, and toughness, and I think those are the 4 things that I took away when I played at Bradley. We call it Bradley built. That's what it means to be Bradley built, and our core values are very important to us. And I want, when they leave, I want them to they're solid in all 4 of those values.
And she truly just wants what's best for all of our players. That's what I really enjoyed when she came in my senior year. She really, her implementing our core values of gratitude, ownership, accountability, and toughness. I really enjoyed that. I took a hold of that.
And about that intentional, sincere relationship component, it begins before these young women put on the red and white.
One of the reasons I came here was the coaches all made me feel very special, and I know how competitive she is and how much she wants to win and how great of a coach she is, so it's really just great to play under someone that's as good a coach as she is.
Caroline Waite, Letty Lerma, the entire women's basketball family can expect enduring relationship, lifetime commitment from this coach. One of the reasons?
Bradley changed my life, and I hope at the end of the day, when they leave Bradley, they feel it's changed their life a little bit too.
Understanding the influence of a coach, far beyond basketball for Andrea Gorski. With the FCA Story of the Week, I'm Dan Pearson.
Thanks, Dan. Time for our last break. Still ahead, Coach Speak. What several Western Big Six basketball coaches have to say before their season begins this week. That's up next on The Score Sunday. An annual hoops tradition returned this past week to the Western Big Six. After being a COVID casualty last winter, the boys basketball coaches banquet was back and better than ever. All 8 conference coaches getting together at the Rock Island Botanical Center. The evening giving coaches a chance to preview their teams and trade a few barbs along the way. This winter, the Western Big Six will welcome a trio of new coaches at Allman, Galesburg, and Rock Island. This year's league returns a ton of talent from a year ago, and with the lack of postseason a year ago, the teams are more than ever eager, ready to get in a full season this winter.
I was talking to our assistant coaches after practice today, and I think this is the best week plus that I've ever had, and this will be my 17th year as a head coach. It's just been re-energized. You know, the gym has just been great. Our kids have been tremendous. They're super enthusiastic. They work so hard, so we're excited about that.
It's great. I think they're really looking forward to getting fans in the gym. They're looking forward to the field house. You know, we've done the new renovation, and they haven't played a game in there with fans in there. So I think they're really excited about, you know, filling it up and seeing that new atmosphere that's going to be there. So I think everyone's excited, staff-wise and also the student athletes.
The season opens for the boys in the Western Big Six this week. Time to announce this week's Midwest Technical Institute Score Standout nominees. We'll start with Carson Fegan from Easton Valley. He has 20 catches for 211 yards, both state records in the 8-man championship game. And Cammie Ludwig from Geneseo. She scores 31 in a Maple Leafs season-opening win. Here are the rest of the MTI Score Standouts. Claire Hawkey from Alleman. She pours in 30 in a Pioneers win. And Olivia Meskin from Sherrard. She scores 20 with 6 rebounds and 5 steals in a Tigers win. You can vote for this week's Score Standouts on Twitter at @thescorewqad or go to the sports page, WQAD.com, and follow the link. Polls are open until Thursday at noon. That's our show for tonight. Make sure to watch our high school football wrap-up show this Thursday at 6:30. I'd like to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching.